What were the biggest misses in WWE in 2024? I'm Will. That's Brandon. We are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling podcast. As always, let's cheers. Talk about some wrestling, huh?
Yeah, I think we'd all like to say that WWE had a great 2024. Very solid. A lot of good stuff. But along with the good stuff, there's been some bad.
Been some bad. Like you said, phenomenal year. We're not trying to take away the positivity from the year at all. But, you know, when you got 2 or 3 3-hour long shows every week, you're going to eventually miss on some things. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go ahead and point that stuff out. Would you like to go first or me?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Do it.
So I kind of broke this down into me. Like for me, I thought about specific maybe storylines or specific wrestlers themselves, not so much maybe like big ideas.
Okay.
So for me, one of the biggest misses this year, as it has continued to be year after year after year after year, the Street Profits.
Oh.
Now, we all kind of have our own thoughts in terms of what may happen, but, you know, once again, another year goes by that everybody's like, well, they should just break this tag team up because this tag team's not going anywhere. They conveniently always seem to get screwed out of their matches, whether it's a triple threat loss or attack before the match. Everybody knows that Montez is a star. Dawkins is also fantastic. He's really improved. He was kind of, for me at least, the guy that was kind of maybe holding them down for a while, but he has steadily increased, gotten better and better year after year. It's time to give them a run and legitimately be like, okay, this is your tag team. Let's give them a title. Let's have them see what they can do. Just break them up. Because I think a lot of people are to the point now that it's like, we've been asking for this for so long. People want it, and you continually just kind of keep being like, you see this? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Couldn't agree more. As the number one Montez Ford supporter in the world. That's me. It's not just a lack of putting the belt on them. It's a lack of giving them any sort of relevant stories. You can be like, well, they were thrown in there with the Bloodline, who's technically the biggest story on all of SmackDown. It's like, no, they were tacked in as extra people because we didn't have enough members to face the Bloodline 2.0 for a little bit. And that led to, and when the Bloodline 2.0 got the tag team titles, they weren't the ones that got the nod to do it. It was Motor City Machine Guns walking in and doing the job for them. So, I completely agree with you. I think the only way, shape, or form that they can stay together and make that thing work is if he gets shipped to Raw. I think that'd be a great idea. But yeah, I completely agree. It's one of the biggest misses that I feel like we could say last year too with them. I just think the Street Profits have been missed on.
Yeah, and like I said, at this point, it's either break them up or try something different. I know this year they did try them as like a heel tag team, but at the same time, they came out with the same entrance music. Literally nothing was different about them. We were just supposed to look at them as bad guys.
Completely agree.
That lasted a couple weeks, maybe a month.
Yeah. I mean, I could piggyback off this to one of mine. I said the Raw tag team division in general. I mean, talk about easily the weakest part of Raw this year. Easily. I mean, at WrestleMania, we had the ladder match where both the titles were on the line, and the Miz and R-Truth walked away with the Raw tag team titles, and it was like, okay, that's fun. Give them their WrestleMania moment. They're going to be a comedy team for a few weeks here. And then a few weeks became more than a few weeks. And then that became months. And then we're like, okay, well, we need to get these tag belts off a comedy team for once. And then it's like, okay, well, Judgment Day makes perfect sense. They're hot. And then Judgment Day got them and have defended them twice in like 200 and something days, or not 200 days, but I mean, it's getting close. It's high up there. Yeah. At the time of this coming out, I'm not sure because I'll be in Germany. That's why we're recording all this. They might have lost it officially to the War Raiders at this point, but either way, I mean, talk about a title that hasn't been defended. I mean, Finn and JD have come out multiple times on Raw and just not even been wearing the tag belts. Like, they're not even on. They're not even being worn. I mean, the disrespect there is just absolutely insane. You know, you have the New Day stuff now. It seems like we're kind of turning that leaf at the end of this year, but in terms of 2024, what a mess the Raw tag team division was.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, I talked about both shows. So while SmackDown, I think, was far better than Raw, there were still some points in me on SmackDown that I was like, okay, Waller in theory had those, and then they went through some weird kind of time, and then, you know, like you said, DIY had them, and they dropped them to the Bloodline, and they kind of held them hostage for a little bit. I felt like tag team wrestling for a while that was riding really, really high, and then it just kind of came to a stop.
Yeah.
On both shows.
Yeah.
The tag team divisions, at least, they seem like they just didn't care anymore.
Which feels like a betrayal to, like, not a betrayal, but it's like flip-flop, because normally we talk about this being the thing with the women's tag division, but the women's tag division this year kind of got an upgrade relative to what they have in the past. So
yeah, and for SmackDown, at least, things are looking better. Things are looking more promising, but there was definitely a time for both shows you're like, are we just ever going to get any good tag team wrestling?
I do think at the end of the year here, they have started to acknowledge the tag teams on both sides, and we're starting to figure that out a little bit. But in terms of piggyback, I'll kind of piggyback here because I'm going to stick to, tag team wrestling in a sense. I'm going to say it is the end of December. I think WWE has missed on the Wyatt 6. I think they have. Not saying that we don't have time to reconcile that and piece it back together. I hope they do. I'm sure they will. But they had what I thought was one of, if not the best debuts in the history of wrestling, especially in terms of a faction. I absolutely loved it. One of a kind stuff when they destroyed Gorilla, and that whole thing was incredible. And the months of lead up to it, it was like, oh, this is great. And then we got some really great stuff with Chad Gable and Alpha Academy. And then that was over. And then it was like, what do we do now? Yeah. Are we going to figure, we're going to get to know these other characters other than Howdy, build them up, see them in tag team matches? What are we going to do with Nikki Cross? Well, the answer was we're going to do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Every couple weeks, you're going to get like a little Howdy promo video or a sign that he might attack something. But, I mean, it was nothing. And now we're finally getting back to it a little bit. They had their match against Cross and AOP and all of them, but Howdy gets pinned right away. It feels like all momentum that they had coming off the debut is pretty much gone, I would say, from the wrestling crowd. You don't really see anybody hyped to see Wyatt 6 anymore. And I just think that was something that was so looked forward to for so long and had such a hot start. And then if you compare their debut to where they're going into 2025, I mean, you couldn't be on opposite levels of the spectrum.
Yeah, I actually have this to add on as my number one biggest miss for 2024. Just because, like you said, the buildup was there, and everybody, you think about it and you're like, well, they have to deliver for Bray's legacy, right? They have to deliver. If they do one thing right, it's got to be this. The debut, like you said, it's 1 or 2. Depending on who you ask. For me, it's probably 1, just because we've never seen anything like that before. Then you get the vignettes and the videos, and you're like, okay, cool. We get to, we got the great one with Rowan that I thought was fantastic. You got Nikki Cross's one, which was like, okay, that didn't tell us a lot. Then you started to look at like Howdy and Bo Dallas, and they were like separate, but they're the same, but they're different. And I'm like, ooh, this is a nice, interesting layer. They have their first match, and it's like, okay, cool, that was awesome. Well, now what do we get? And then WWE proceeded to just drop the ball in every sense. I would have liked to get to look at everybody individually again, like Gacy and Loomis. I thought that would have been something fantastic. You could have had them just be a tag team. You could have had them challenge and just have regular matches. You needed to have something on screen that wasn't just video packages and recorded promos and be like, okay, well, here's your Wyatt 6 stuff. And it's like, well, this grew old. Well, this doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, I guess now here we are. And so you look at it now, and like you said, Howdy takes the pin, or Bo Dallas, as some people were correcting us at the time. Admittedly, I don't really care because it's like,
dude was wearing the mask. It was I don't care either way.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy Cross got the win, but they really just, there's rumors about them fighting Judgment Day eventually. I don't care about that. Like, they've taken all the stock and enjoyment, I think, out of this, and they've, like I said, this was supposed to be for Bray's legacy, and what they did was, oh, well, they did everything that they did to Bray. They had it really promising. They showed you, yeah, this could be really, really great if we do things correctly. And then they just were like, oh, we're going to do the same thing that we did then, and that's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it just flat out sucks.
Yeah, you said all of it. We were so hyped, man.
I think we were hyped, and I think we held out more hope than I think a lot of people.
We stuck with it longer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sure did. What's next on yours?
Oh, so we just talked about one faction. I'm going to go to another faction.
Oh, no.
A fan favorite.
Can I say it?
Yes.
Hear me out. PFC.
Yes. They're on my list. biggest misses. I had to.
How dare you?
How could you not?
What a terrible.
God, we talk about this each and every week on the podcast. Something that could have been really good, a great idea when they first came back and they debuted. I really genuinely think they were trying to set them up as the dominant female faction for like a War Games match. I believe that. And then they named them PFC, and you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. What the hell is the point of that?
Pure Fusion. I just remember seeing the name. Like,
yeah.
the hell, what does that mean?
They've never cut like a promo telling you what Pure Fusion Collective is. They tend to lose all the time. At the time that we're recording this, they're like somewhat attacking Dakota Kai, and like Sonya Deville's like, well, I should have been in this tournament, not you. And Zoe Stark's there, and Shayna Baszler's like a shell of what she once was. It's just, there's no pop when they come out. It's just, it's up there on my list.
Talk about a great idea just squandered the second you named them and the second you booked them. Like, what are we going to do? We have 3 legitimate MMA background main card roster slot women that need something to do. We're going to throw them together. They're going to be a legit badass faction. Okay, how are we going to book them? They're going to lose everything. They're never going to win. They're always going to lose. Anything they're in, they're going to lose. They might attack you after the match. They might jump you randomly in the back, but when the bell rings and the end bell comes on, they lost. And it's just, this entire thing has felt like one of the most pointless storylines and one of the most pointless factions in the history of wrestling. They have no purpose, and they have the dumbest name to boot with it. Like, ugh.
And they had Sonya Deville, who I thought was a really great like middle woman. Like, she was, passable in the ring with her MMA style. I was a big fan of Shayna Baszler in NXT. I thought she was fantastic. Zoe Stark is getting better. So you have Sonya that could at least try to cut some promos for the team to kind of bridge that gap for them. And I mean, dear God, every way they could have possibly failed this and messed this up, that's what they did.
They did.
And there's, like I said, no pop. Nothing. They come out and
no
you're
pop
just like...
collective. No pop collective.
Pretty forgettable characters?
Pretty forgettable characters. Yeah. That's rough, man. We're going to switch it away from tag teams and all that jazz for a little bit. I'm going to talk about a specific moments. I have 2 specific moments that I want to talk about as big misses this year.
Okay.
One started all the way back in April. The Jay versus Jimmy Mania 40 match. That was a miss. That was not WWE's booking. That was not WWE's planning. That was not WWE's fault. They trusted these brothers to get into the ring and have themselves a Mania match that all of us wanted. And we all loved Jimmy and Jay. We even did at the time. Jay was yeeting still at that point.
Big Jim now.
We were all excited for it. But man, they missed an execution. That was a super kick fest. Slow. Don't go back and watch it. Like, I tried to kind of go back and watch clips of it to make sure that I was remembering it as bad as it is. It is a slow, super kick infested mess. Just a disappointing match from 2 brothers and what should have been better.
It's one of the worst WrestleMania matches ever. I mean,
well, especially when you talk about the expectations going in, and you're like, man, this is the good Uso versus the bad Uso, and it's brother versus brother, and you're like, this is gonna be fantastic, and then you're like, oh no.
Yeah,
it's bad.
Oh no. I mean, the highlight for them was when Jay tackled Jimmy off the next stage.
Yeah. The next night.
That was better than the match.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you said don't go back and watch it. I never once thought to myself, I'm going to go back and watch it.
And the other specific moment throughout the year, and I thought this was really big miss. And this was WWE's booking. The biggest miss, I think, booking-wise of WWE this year was having Money in the Bank go to Drew McIntyre and him cashing it in that night during the Priest and Rollins match, and then Punk got involved. I mean, talk about guys who were in that match that could have utilized that and just catapulted themselves. Jey Uso was in that match. LA Knight was in that match. Like, so a bunch of guys that could have used that for, I mean, the Jey Uso Money in the Bank storyline would have been one of the best storylines in wrestling. He'd probably still have it like Tiffy does. But instead, they decide to shoe in the Money in the Bank briefcase as a plot furthering device for the Drew McIntyre CM Punk feud, which was an incredible feud. But this was a big miss during it.
Yeah, I still think about that now, and I'm like, man, I still don't like it as much back then as I didn't like it. Like, I wasn't a fan then. I'm not a fan now. I get it furthered that feud, but I felt like you were really sacrificing something that could have progressed somebody. Like that feud did not need that briefcase.
No.
It was good in and of itself. You could have given it to somebody else and given them a chance. God, that's a good one. I kind of forgot about that somewhat, but yeah, that was bad. Did not like that.
Not good. Not good.
I'm going to talk about a specific superstar now that I think is a miss. And I'm not saying he didn't have memorable times. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy him. I think he did the best that he could. You going to guess?
The best that he could makes me think of like, I don't even know, Schnitzky. Best that he could this year, male superstar, did the best that he could. I don't know.
I'm going to go with Chad Gable.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He did great. He was great with Alpha Academy. He was great in the Sami Zayn feud. He's even great with American Made when he's with American Made.
This is a good take. People are probably going to jump. The second you say that, people are probably going to be like, what is he talking about? But this is a good take.
But you look at it.
Yeah.
He had a chance to win the IC title off Sami. He did not. Now, what they did with the IC title, that's fine. That's great. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, we're going to get a really great, fantastic feud with Otis and Chad Gable. Well, we didn't get that. Okay, well, let's just repackage Chad Gable, make him Kurt Angle 2.0. Let's put him with a great tag team. Let's put him with Lady Liberty. Well, they're going to be American Made. That sounds pretty awesome. Well, they're funny. They're good in the ring. Chad can kind of carry the mic skills. Ivy Niles kind of underrated as a women's wrestler. But they're just going to lose.
Yeah.
Oh, there's going to be 1 week where the Creeds kind of sit there and they look like they're going to turn on Chad Gable, but then he just smacks them a bunch and they're like, yeah, that just fires him up. Okay, well, what comes of that? Well, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Chad Gable, it's a year of wins and losses in terms of like, I think it was his breakout year as being like an established, like he can do it all. Like people now believe he can do it all in ring, as a face and as a heel. He's now 100% well-rounded. You can trust him in whatever role you want to throw him in. But if you look at the payoffs, he got none.
Yeah.
The Alpha Academy split led to literally nothing. It led to the Wyatt 6 debut, which was the whole purpose almost. Like the entire purpose was just to introduce the Wyatt 6 instead of giving the fans what they really actually wanted throughout the whole thing, which was a great Chad Gable versus Otis match, where, you know, that a big payoff match that we literally never got, Chad Gable versus Otis. How the hell did we not get Chad Gable versus Otis? The whole freaking story was that.
Well, and then you look at it and people may say, well, then on that one SmackDown, he came out and challenged like Cody Rhodes and talked about the transfer portal. Like, okay, yeah, cool. He got in the ring with Cody Rhodes. Well, all of American Made was out there and Chad still just took the loss. And it's like, okay, like every chance that they have a chance to give him a win, even if it is a small, meaningful one. I'm not talking Cody Rhodes. I'm not talking your main event guy. But even just in the ring randomly with random people, with Dragon Lee at points.
Yep.
He puts on classes with Dragon Lee. And they just can't seem to pull the trigger and give him a win.
And not to mention, like, people forget the beginning of the year started off with him and that he was in that triangle with Gunther and Sammy and for the Intercontinental title. And they never pulled the trigger with them. They never gave it to him. Yeah. And then he took off as a heel and really got over as a heel. And no, they didn't rehash the Intercontinental scene, and and then they paired him with American Made. Oh, so did he win the tag team titles? No, they didn't even go for the tag team titles. They didn't even get close. No. Did he? Because they went to SmackDown for a couple days. Did he get himself involved in the US scene? No. Yeah. How about the SmackDown tag? No. It's like you can look at like at face value, Chad had a good year, but if you dig into it at all, if you scratch through the surface whatsoever, you're just like, oh, there's a bunch of just storylines that got cut off and nothing happened.
Yeah. My main worry for Chad Gable in 2024 going into 2025 is he's so good at what he does. And I think WWE is realizing that he can get over in pretty much any way. Even if you honestly go back and look at the Shorty G days, which obviously we're not fans of, but people liked it. He's so good in his ability to get over. I just don't want them to be like another Street Profits where it's like, okay, when are you going to give them some time? When are you going to give it to? You know what I mean?
They don't even give them time on the screen anymore. I know we went to 2 hours and everything, but they don't even give them much time at all. So we don't need to talk about this very much. I did have down Bayley as champion, just does not work.
Yeah, we've said it once before. We'll say it again. Bayley is great as a challenger, as a chaser. Just
I mean, the second she wins that belt, it just doesn't work out. I don't know if that's her fault. I don't know if it's WWE's booking fault, but at this point, it's happened basically every time she's become champion. I think you can just kind of point the finger at whoever you want there, and you're probably right.
Yeah, I don't care whose fault it is, but you got to fix it if you do it again.
My biggest miss of the year is going to be the most controversial one. Ooh. My biggest miss of the year is they never had a plan for Cody Rhodes. They never had a plan for Cody Rhodes. He finished his story, and it was absolutely incredible at WrestleMania 40. We all loved it. You know, he celebrated in the ring. Woohoo! Finished his story. Hell yeah! Then you go to work next Monday. What's next? Well, they threw him at AJ Styles. Okay, that's
don't
cool.
forget they had Brock Lesnar attack him, right?
No, that was 2 years ago.
Was that 2 years ago?
AJ
God,
Styles,
I'm getting my stuff confused. Good.
They
Lord.
had AJ Styles, and then they had Logan Paul, and then they had AJ Styles again,
right.
and then he was right back to the bloodline stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was no plan for Cody Rhodes. The plan was for him to get the belt, and then it was like, okay, let's make this crap up on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed the entire year. And it showed to the point where it felt like they just had to throw him back into the bloodline story by any means possible. As interesting as I liked Cody and Roman teaming up, it felt like that's our champion, and now he's teaming up with the past champ. Like, he's not doing any champion specific stuff there, and that led to more bloodline stuff. You know, it was just a lot of bloodline again with him. And so it feels like the finishing the story at WrestleMania wasn't actually finishing the story, and that's because they didn't actually have a plan. Mm-hmm. And it feels like we've missed out on one whole year of good Cody champion storytelling, and now we're finally getting it with Kevin Owens. But it's December, man. It is December. He won it in April. We missed a big chunk of the year.
Yeah, to credit your point, it's been so bad at points that I thought the Brock Lesnar thing was this year, which, I mean, if they had something planned for him after that, I wouldn't have got so confused. Or just, not be an idiot, Brandon. Yeah, you look at it, I think the biggest thing I'm on the side, obviously I love Cody Rhodes, but you didn't have a plan for him. The last 4 years have been bloodline heel stuff. You haven't built up any sort of credible heels on SmackDown for after that was over. So like you said, they have to kind of put him back into bloodline stuff, but it's like, I thought at Mania, that was going to be it. Like, I wanted a break. Like, mentally, I needed a break from Cody bloodline stuff. I was like, okay, cool. He finished that story, on to something else. Yeah, the Logan Paul stuff, like you said, the AJ Styles stuff. AJ Styles stuff was good matches, but it was rushed.
There's no story.
No story. Just, I'm going to come fight you. Okay, well, yeah, come on. Let's throw hands.
I quit match. Okay.
Yeah, great stuff. Just
great matches. I'm not hating on the matches.
Need a story. So now you're looking, like you said, December. You're finally starting to get some good stuff with Kevin Owens, but April to December has definitely been sort of a drag at times for Cody's title reign. And it sucks because Cody kind of gets put on that. Like, he's the one that has to take the brunt of it. But honestly, like, WWE didn't do him any favors there. I'm gonna think of one off the top of my head and another.
I got one
superstar.
more.
You got one more? You want me to go? You want to go?
You go.
So I'm gonna go with another superstar. You kind of already talked about them when you talked about the Raw tag team titles. But I'm going with Finn Balor here. Just as a whole, Finn Balor, they got those on at Mania, like you said. They haven't really done anything with those tag titles. Okay, well, Finn Balor is, a lot of people, he's the top guy. He's a main event type guy. Well, you're getting well, as we're recording this here, a triple threat coming up for the Raw title, but it's like Finn wasn't really in any matches. He wasn't on TV for weeks. It's like, okay, they have a star with Finn Balor if they do things correctly. They just, once again, I guess, just didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah. I would kind of label this as like Judgment Day post Damian Rhea was a miss. It's been a miss. They didn't know whether or not to lean heavy into the Liv Dom stuff, but the reaction was so good that they did lean into the Liv Dom stuff. And then when they did lean into the Liv Dom stuff, you almost forgot about the Judgment Day. And then they had to be like, okay, well, we have to remind people about the Judgment Day. It's just been a big, cloudy, jumbled mess. And then like the Finn come up randomly happened, even though like it felt like a month ago Rhea was able to push him aside if she wanted to. Yeah. So it just, they
kind of lucked into the Liv Dom thing, and then that threw him a curveball that they're like, I don't know what to do at this point.
Right. My last one is just this is kind of just my opinion. Uh-oh. I said lack of fun in the main title scene overall. Man, those belts like to stick on people, don't they? They really, really do. They're gone are the days of little back and forth moments where a guy drops the title and gets it back at the next pay-per-view. Gone are those days, man. We get ourselves some long title reigns. We thought Damian Priest is going to be a transitional champion for a month or two. Well, he carried that thing from Mania to SummerSlam, which he blew our expectations away. That's great. Good for him. Love Damian Priest. Top guy now. But then it goes to Gunther, and now, we're in the Gunther era. Cody's had it forever. It has never once felt like Cody was going to drop that belt. Never once. Those are our main titles. And it never feels like those things are on the verge of being lost. And that, to me, I want some shock and awe.
Yeah. So we've been doing this podcast. I think we started in, I want to say early May.
Yep.
Early mid-May. And shortly after, one of the things you said was you were done with long reigns.
Yep.
Well, Triple H looked at that and said, "You want to see me do it again?
Yeah.
Do you want to see me do it again?" It would be nice to have some spice, some different things, some here or there. Some shock and awe is okay if it's done correctly.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten anything like that. So, I kind of really couldn't agree more with that. One more I'm going to say.
Uh-oh.
Which doesn't make any sense. I maybe just be talking just to fill time now. Giovanni Vinci with his miss. You repackage this guy. We don't have to talk long because his matches aren't very long.
I was about to say, how long are you going to talk about
But you
this?
repackage this guy, and he comes after 2 matches, 2 quick roll-ups, boom.
No, you're done.
Over. Yep.
That's it. You already spoke longer about Giovanni Vinci than
It popped in my head. I was like, remember that time they repackaged this guy?
I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue
Not that anybody cares, and frankly, I don't really either. I just think it's funny.
Yeah. We could probably talk all day about this stuff. Again, we're not trying to be negative. WWE had a stellar year. We absolutely love it. Be looking out for our review, just on that note. But those were our biggest misses in WWE this year, 2024. Let us know in the comments what you think were the biggest misses. Let's try to keep it positive, though. We're not just trying to sit here and crap on WWE. We love the product. It's just these are the things that we thought they could have done a little bit better on. But follow us on all of our socials at codwrestlepod, COD WrestlePod. Come watch our live streams, twitch.com/codwrestlepod. We're not going to have one right now or in a little bit because I'm in Germany right now, but when we get back, we do Raw, SmackDown, PLEs live streamed right there. So
the first one we will do is going to be that big old Raw
to
Netflix.
Can't wait. But listen to us wherever you get our podcast at YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. You guys know the rule here. Thank you for all the support. We truly love and appreciate it. I'm Will. That's Brandon. We are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. We will see you next time.